Benjamin Bugsy Siegel. Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, sometimes known as Ben Siegel, was an American mobster who was a driving force behind the development of the Las Vegas Strip. Siegel was influential within the Jewish mob, along with his childhood friend and fellow gangster Meyer Lansky, and he also held significant influence within the Italian-American Mafia and the largely Italian-Jewish national crime syndicate. Described as handsome and charismatic, he became one of the first front-page celebrity gangsters. Siegel was one of the founders and leaders of Murder Incorporated and became a bootlegger during American Prohibition. The 21st Amendment was passed in 1933 repealing Prohibition, and he turned to gambling. In 1936, he left New York and moved to California. His time as a mobster during this period was mainly as a hitman and muscle, as he was noted for his prowess with guns and violence. In 1941, Siegel was tried for the murder of friend and fellow mobster Harry Greenberg, who had turned informant. He was acquitted in 1942. Siegel traveled to Las Vegas, Nevada, where he handled and financed some of the original casinos. He assisted developer William Wilkerson's Flamingo Hotel after Wilkerson ran out of funds. Siegel assumed control of the project and managed the final stages of construction. The Flamingo opened on December 26, 1946 in a driving rainstorm, resulting in a poor reception and technical difficulties, and it soon closed. It reopened in March 1947 with a finished hotel, but by then his mob partners were convinced that an estimated $1 million of the construction budget overrun had been skimmed by Siegel's girlfriend Virginia Hill or by both of them. On June 20th, 1947, Siegel was shot dead by a sniper through the window of Hill's Linden Drive mansion in Beverly Hills, California. Born on February 28, 1906, in the Williamsburg neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York City, Benjamin Siegel was the second of 5 children in a struggling Ashkenazi Jewish family that had immigrated to the U.S. from the Galicia region of what was then Austria-Hungary. His parents, Jenny Rieckenthal and Max Siegel, toiled tirelessly for meager wages. Siegel, growing up in poverty, left school early and became involved with a gang on Lafayette Street in Manhattan's Lower East Side. During his youth, Siegel engaged in various criminal activities, primarily thefts, until he crossed paths with Mo Sedway. Together, they established a protection racket, coercing pushcart owners to pay them $1 under the threat of setting fire to their merchandise. This marked the beginning of Siegel's criminal career, leading to an extensive criminal record that spanned from his teenage years and included offenses such as armed robbery, rape, and murder. In his teenage years, Siegel formed a close friendship with Meyer Lansky, whose sharp intellect played a key role in establishing a small mob engaged in activities such as gambling and car theft. Lansky, having previously crossed paths with Charles Lucky Luciano, recognized the need for the Jewish youth in their Brooklyn neighborhood to organize similarly to the Italian and Irish communities. Siegel was the first recruit for this gang. Siegel's criminal involvement extended to bootlegging in several major East Coast cities, and he served as the mob's hitman, working for other crime families at Lansky's behest. Together, they founded the Bugs and Meyer Mob, handling hits for various bootlegging gangs in New York and New Jersey nearly a decade before the formation of Murder Incorporated. The gang's activities included hijacking rival liquor cargoes and eliminating rival gangland figures. Notably, Siegel's fearlessness in the face of danger earned him respect among his peers, as recalled by mob member Joseph Doc Stocker. A childhood friend of Al Capone, Siegel sheltered Capone when there was a warrant for his arrest on a murder charge. Siegel's involvement in the drug trade began during his youth, and by the age of 21, he had amassed significant wealth. He flaunted his prosperity by acquiring an apartment at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel and a Tudor home in Scarsdale, New York. Siegel's extravagant lifestyle included flashy clothing and active participation in the vibrant nightlife of New York City. In 1929, Lansky and Siegel, representing the Bugs and Meyer mob, attended the Atlantic City Conference from May 13th to 16th. Hosted by Luciano and former Chicago South Side gang leader Johnny Torrio at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Atlantic City, New Jersey, the conference focused on the future of organized crime and the structure of mafia crime families. Siegel emphasized a unity between different ethnic groups, stating, "The Yids and the Dagos will no longer fight each other." On January 28, 1929, Siegel tied the knot with Esta Krakauer, his childhood sweetheart. The couple welcomed two daughters, Millicent Siegel, later Millicent Rosen, and Barbara Siegel, later Barbara Saperstein. Despite his reputation as a womanizer, the marriage eventually came to an end in 1946. Following their separation, his wife relocated with their teenage daughters to New York. By the late 1920s, Lansky and Siegel formed connections with Luciano and Frank Costello, future leaders of the Genovese crime family. Siegel, Albert Anastasia, Vito Genovese, and Joe Adonis were purportedly the four gunmen who carried out the killing of New York mob boss Joe Masuria on Luciano's orders on April 15, 1931, effectively concluding the Castellamarese War. On September 10th of the same year, Luciano enlisted four gunmen from the Bugs and Meyer mob to assassinate Salvatore Maranzano in his New York office, solidifying Luciano's ascension to the top of the mafia and marking the inception of modern American organized crime. Following Maranzano's demise, Luciano and Lansky established the National Crime Syndicate, an alliance of crime families that wielded significant power in the underworld. The commission was formed to delineate mafia territories and prevent future gang conflicts. Alongside his associates, Siegel played a role in the creation of Murder Incorporated. Subsequently, control over Murder Incorporated transitioned to Buckleter and Anastasia after Siegel and Lansky moved on, although Siegel continued to operate as a hitman. Siegel's only legal entanglement occurred in Miami. On February 28, 1932, he faced arrest for gambling and vagrancy, paying a $100 fine from a roll of bills. During this period, Siegel found himself at odds with the Fabrizio brothers, associates of Waxy Gordon. Gordon had hired the Fabrizio brothers from prison following information provided by Lansky and Siegel to the IRS about Gordon's tax evasion, leading to Gordon's imprisonment in 1933. In response to an assassination attempt by the Fabrizios, who breached Siegel's heavily fortified Waldorf Astoria suite with a bomb, Siegel sought revenge by hunting down and killing them. One of the brothers, Tony Fabrizio, had planned to expose Siegel's nationwide kill-for-hire squad in a memoir, but the mob discovered his intentions before he could carry them out. In 1932, Siegel, after establishing an alibi in a hospital, joined two accomplices to lure Tony Fabrizio outside by posing as detectives, ultimately gunning him down. In 1935, Siegel played a role in Luciano's alliance with Dutch Schultz and participated in the killing of rival loan sharks Louis Pretty Amberg and Joseph C. Amberg. Siegel became aware of the imminent danger as his hospital alibi came under scrutiny, and his adversaries were intent on eliminating him. In the late 1930s, the East Coast mob dispatched Siegel to California. Since 1933, he had made multiple trips to the West Coast, and in California, his mission involved establishing syndicate-approved gambling operations alongside Los Angeles family boss Jack Dragna. Upon his arrival in Los Angeles, Siegel enlisted gang boss Mickey Cohen as his chief lieutenant. Recognizing Siegel's reputation for violence and his support from Lansky and Luciano, whose message from prison urged Dragna to cooperate, Dragna assumed a subordinate role. On his tax returns, Siegel falsely claimed to earn his income through legal gambling at Santa Anita Park. He quickly took control of Los Angeles' numbers racket and utilized syndicate funds to facilitate a drug trade route from Mexico, along with organized circuits connected to the Chicago outfit's wire services. By 1942, the syndicate's bookmaking wire operations were generating a daily income of $500,000. In 1946, due to issues with Siegel, the outfit assumed control of the Continental Press and allocated a portion of the racing wire to Dragna, provoking Siegel's anger. Despite challenges with the wire services, Siegel managed various offshore casinos and a significant prostitution ring. Additionally, he maintained connections with politicians, businessmen, attorneys, accountants, and lobbyists who acted as fronts for him. In Hollywood, Siegel seamlessly integrated into elite circles, forming friendships with movie stars. Notably, he associated with George Raft, Clark Gable, Gary Cooper, and Cary Grant, alongside studio executives Louis B. Mayer and Jack L. Warner. Actress Jean Harlow, a close friend of Siegel, even became the godmother to his daughter, Millicent. Siegel invested in real estate and hosted extravagant gatherings at his Beverly Hills residence, earning admiration from emerging celebrities like Tony Curtis, Phil Silvers, and Frank Sinatra. Siegel's romantic entanglements included relationships with notable women, such as socialite Countess Dorothy DeFrasso. This association led Siegel to Italy in 1938, where he encountered Benito Mussolini and attempted to sell weapons. During this time, he also met Nazi leaders Hermann Göring and Joseph Goebbels, harboring an instant dislike for them and even offering to carry out a hit, a proposition he ultimately abandoned due to the Countess's fervent pleas. In Hollywood, Siegel collaborated with the syndicate to establish illicit operations. His strategy involved extorting movie studios by taking control of local trade unions, such as the Screen Extras Guild and the Los Angeles Teamsters. Siegel orchestrated strikes to coerce studios into paying him off, ensuring that the unions would resume their work. Exploiting his connections, he borrowed money from celebrities without any intention of repayment, confident that they would never demand it. In his initial year in Hollywood, Siegel amassed over $400,000 in loans from movie stars. On November 22, 1939, Siegel, along with Whitey Krakow, Frankie Carbo, and Albert Tannenbaum, carried out the killing of Harry Big Greenie Greenberg outside his apartment. Greenberg had posed a threat by considering cooperation with the police as an informant, leading to his targeted assassination as ordered by Buckleter. Tannenbaum confessed to the murder and agreed to testify against Siegel. In September 1941, Siegel faced trial for his implication in the murder, garnering attention for the preferential treatment he received in jail. This included his refusal to consume prison food, permission for female visitors, and authorized leave for dental appointments. Siegel enlisted attorney Jerry Giesler for his defense. Despite 2 state witnesses passing away and no additional testimonies emerging, Tannenbaum's testimony was disregarded. In 1942, Siegel was acquitted due to insufficient evidence, but the trial tarnished his reputation. Throughout the trial, newspapers exposed Siegel's history, coining the nickname Bugsy. Siegel detested the moniker as it derived from the slang term bugs, signifying crazy and referencing his erratic behavior. He preferred being addressed as Ben or Mr. Siegel. On May 25, 1944, Siegel faced another arrest, this time for bookmaking. Testimonials from George Raft and Mac Gray contributed to his acquittal later in 1944. In 1946, Siegel seized an opportunity to transform his public image and venture into legitimate business by partnering with William R. Wilkerson in the Flamingo Hotel. Back in the 1930s, Siegel, alongside Sedway, had explored prospects for expanding operations in southern Nevada, identifying opportunities and providing illicit services to crews working on the Boulder Dam. Lansky had entrusted Siegel with operations in Nevada, which he later delegated to Sedway before departing for Hollywood. During the mid-1940s, Siegel was strategically setting the stage in Las Vegas, while his associates developed a business strategy to dominate all gambling activities in Los Angeles. By May 1946, he determined that the arrangement with Wilkerson needed modification to grant him control of the Flamingo. With the Flamingo, Siegel aimed to provide top-notch gambling, premium liquor and cuisine, and high-profile entertainers at reasonable prices. He envisioned attracting thousands of vacationers willing to gamble $50 or $100, as well as catering to high rollers. Wilkerson eventually succumbed to the pressure and sold all stakes in the Flamingo under the threat of death, prompting him to go into hiding in Paris for a period. Following this development, the Flamingo came under syndicate management. Siegel embarked on an extravagant spending spree, insisting on acquiring the most luxurious building that money could secure during a time of post-war shortages. As costs skyrocketed, Siegel's checks began bouncing, and by October 1946, the expenses for the Flamingo had exceeded $4 million. By 1947, the costs had surpassed $6 million, equivalent to $69 million in 2022. As November approached its end, the construction was nearing completion. Later accounts from local observers suggested that Siegel's extravagant displays of wealth and self-assuredness set a precedent for subsequent generations of notable casino moguls. His notorious violent reputation further complicated matters. Siegel once boldly claimed to have personally taken lives, prompting a panicked reaction from head contractor Del Webb. However, Siegel reassured Webb, saying, "Del, don't worry, we only kill each other." Despite this intimidating facade, some associates depicted Siegel differently. They saw him as an intense personality with a charitable side, highlighted by his contributions to the Damon Runyon Cancer Fund. Lou Weiner Jr., Siegel's Las Vegas attorney, described him as very well liked and noted that he was good to people. Issues with the outfit's wire service had been resolved in Nevada and Arizona, but Siegel declined to report business in California. He informed his associates that he was independently managing the California syndicate and would repay the loans on his own timeline. Despite this, the mob bosses exercised patience, recognizing Siegel's historical value as a reliable asset. The Flamingo officially debuted on December 26, 1946, with only the casino, lounge, theater, and restaurant completed. Although local residents attended the opening, few celebrities were present due to inclement weather. Some notable figures, including George Raft, June Haver, Vivian Blaine, Sonny Tufts, Brian Dunleavy, and Charles Coburn, braved the conditions and were welcomed by ongoing construction noise and a lobby covered in drop cloths. The desert's inaugural air conditioning system faced frequent breakdowns. While gambling tables operated, the luxurious rooms, intended to entice guests to stay and gamble, were not yet ready. During the evening, Siegel received word that the casino was losing money, leading to his frustration and verbal abuse, even ejecting at least one family. Within 2 weeks, the Flamingo's gaming tables were $275,000 in the red, prompting the entire operation to shut down in late January 1947. Siegel made extensive efforts to revitalize the Flamingo, undertaking renovations and seeking positive press. He enlisted Hank Greenspun as a publicist, and the hotel reopened on March 1, 1947, with Lansky in attendance, eventually turning a profit. However, by the time the profits began to improve, the mob bosses overseeing Siegel grew impatient. On the night of June 20th, 1947, Siegel and his associate Alan Smiley were at Virginia Hill's Beverly Hills home, reading the Los Angeles Times when an unidentified assailant fired at them through the window using a .30 caliber military M1 carbine. Siegel sustained multiple gunshot wounds, including 2 to the head. Some regarded the attack as a cowardly act, ambushing the formidable and well-armed Siegel from a distance. No one was charged in connection with Siegel's killing, and the crime remains officially unsolved. One theory suggests that Siegel's death resulted from his extravagant spending and possible embezzlement from the mob. In 1946, a meeting took place in Havana, Cuba, with the syndicate's board of directors, where a contract on Siegel's life was supposedly agreed upon. Lansky, reluctantly according to Stocker, allegedly concurred with the decision. Another theory proposes that Siegel was preemptively shot by Matthew Moose Panza, the lover of Sedway's wife B. This occurred after B sought Panza's protection upon learning that Siegel was threatening her husband. Siegel's growing resentment towards the control exerted by Sedway over his finances, at the mob's insistence, fueled his plans to eliminate Sedway. Former Philadelphia family boss Ralph Natale claimed that Carbo, at Lansky's behest, was responsible for Siegel's killing. Siegel's death certificate lists the cause of death as homicide, with an immediate cause of cerebral hemorrhage due to gunshot wounds of the head. Siegel sustained several other gunshot wounds, including shots through his lungs. According to Floribel Muir, 4 of the 9 shots fired that night destroyed a white marble statue of Bacchus on a grand piano and then lodged in the far wall. Following Siegel's demise, the Los Angeles Herald-Express featured a photograph of his bare right foot with a toe tag on its front page from the morgue. Despite the homicide occurring in Beverly Hills, Siegel's death thrust Las Vegas into the national spotlight as newspapers across the country published photographs of his lifeless body. The day after Siegel's murder, David Berman and his Las Vegas mob associates, Sedway and Gus Greenbaum, assumed control of the Flamingo Hotel and Casino. In the Białystok synagogue situated on New York's Lower East Side, Siegel is commemorated with a yahrzeit, a remembrance plaque, noting his death date for mourners to recite Kaddish on the anniversary. Positioned beneath Max Siegel's plaque, who passed away merely 2 months before his son, Siegel's memorial holds a place of remembrance. Additionally, at the Flamingo Las Vegas property, located between the pool and a wedding chapel, there stands a memorial plaque dedicated to Siegel. Siegel's legacy lives on in the infamous stories of his criminal exploits, the development of the Las Vegas Strip, and the enduring mystique of his persona. Memorials at the Białystok synagogue and the Flamingo Las Vegas serve as poignant reminders of a complex and controversial figure whose life continues to captivate the imagination of those fascinated by the darker side of American history.